in TPM language, we call startup loss, like, getting in like, one gateway, right? So let's start slowly. I think majority is here. So when it's come to communication part, right, is very important. There are classic example, like, in food industry, since most of you are in food industry, right? We talk about recall, right? So if you want to do a recall, imagine like you manufacture a product. So hope you can see and hear me as well, right? See the presentation, hear me as well. You're good?
Yes, sir.
All right. Okay. So like, if there's a recall, like say you manufacture some kind of a, like, we'll say toffee product, which is given to the children, right? And then all of a sudden you identify there's some, like, material inside is not mixed properly. So, or maybe there's some, like, unwanted particles inside the toffee. So if you have to do a public recall, what will happen to your brand? There was a scenario, right? Like, if you can remember, there was a scenario like that. Kind of a product mixed with foreign matter. We call foreign matter is there. So then, if this has to be communicated, who's going to communicate this? Is it QA manager or who's going to communicate? What do you think? So this kind of a, like, situation, if there's a communication, who's going to communicate with this? Who's communicating with this? Normally, this will be communicated by either CEO, most senior person in the organization, or this will be communicated by the legal officer, right? So that's the communication. So that's why ISO standard said on what it will be communicate, when to communicate, with whom to communicate, how to communicate, who communicates part. So if you see now, I don't know the English term, police madhya prakashaka. So most of the police madhya prakashakas are lawyers. If you check them, so they are coming from the legal background. So they know what to talk, what kind of a implication, like, can come if they give this kind of information. What are the information they need to provide, because they are trained, they are skilled people, right? Not just like anybody. In the security force, they can become a madhya prakashaka, right? So there should be a legal, like competency requirement, right? So because their communication is very important. So any organization, you need to have a communication. So if you need to communicate with the workforce, who will be the best person to communicate with the workforce? And then if you have to communicate with the legal requirement, legal changes, I mean, like, good things anybody can communicate, like, so if you have to communicate the overtime cut down, right? So then there should be authorized person, like, then there will be some bounce back. People ask so many questions, so then you should be able to answer that. Then person has to have that personality, uh, right? So these are kind of a requirement, right? So this is the communication part, right? Then this is like documentation part. This is very straightforward. So any ISO requirement, right? Any organization. So, like, you need to have a, like, documented information. So when you update the document, so these things has to be there. So any documents, identify and description, title, date, author, or reference number. So whatever the document you shared with me on the chat, or this what do you call, chat and WhatsApp, are they the control document? What do you think? Is it the control document? Whatever the documents you shared with me, see, you communicate the information with me, right? So are they control document? Are they control document? What do you think?
It's not.
It's not. Why is not? Because there's no title, there's no date, there's no author or reference number. See, if you communicate, like, context analysis, this is the document, right? And these are the reference numbers. Then it will become a control document. So whatever the documents you have, you need to make sure these are control document. Then you need to have a format, like, version, language, those kind of thing, and review approval thing. So now I have one question. Can you have, like your organization is certified, can you have like, one set of documents for ISO, which is control document, and there's another set of document is not ISO? Can you have this? Say similar organization, say organization is X organization, and this particular organization is certified for ISO 9001 2015. So can you have like, one set of document, control documents, all focused for ISO, and there's another set of documents which is not focused for ISO? Can you have that? Can you have this? No, you can't. So we have observed this. That's wrong. Say the moment, like, since this is the implementer program, first thing what you do is like when you go for an organization, identify all the documentation requirement, all the documents, and then bring them into document control. Say if you have a ERP system, that is fantastic. You don't need to do anything because already document controls are there. People cannot change unless authorization. Yeah. So all the soft copy version, like, your payment vouchers, everything you have to do, like, you don't need to touch because it's a system based. If it is manual based, then you need to bring this document control, right? So the control of document information, it is available and suitable for use where, when it's needed, it is adequately protected from loss of confidentiality, improper use, or loss of integrity. Say for example, if you can't find a document in like, within time period, so I'm like, we will consider that as a kind of like, the document is lost, the confidentiality is lost, right? That's why the context analysis is not part of the document process, because like, it contains a lot of confidential information, because it basically talk about your organization positives and negatives, risk factors, right? So if that become a kind of like, public document, it goes to a like, the people who doesn't need to see that information, right? So that will be a serious issue, right? So this is one area of the document control. Right. Now, I think we covered this part. Let me go back. So this is the PDC cycle. So we plan part we covered, do part we covered, right? So planning, context we covered, leadership part we covered. Planning, you remember you did you develop a action plan for risk and opportunity. You identify the objectives, right? Then changes, and then legal other requirement we basically covered. And then support we covered, resource monitoring, all this part. One more thing, I missed one thing, right? Monitoring and measurement resource, I missed that. So I need to cover that. So basically we covered. And then operational, under 4.4 we covered everything. So let us quickly cover the traceability. Right. So this part I actually missed out. So the measurement traceability is like, many organization, you do the measurement, right? So when you do the measurement, like, you might use a thermometer, you might use the, like, a ruler, you might use the vernier, whatever the equipment you use, we have to make sure this, the equipment is calibrated. Right now, like, if you are connected through internet, you might say your time is 342 because you are connected, you are synced. But if you take a isolated watch, the time might be like 3:45. So for us, it doesn't matter. 2 to 3 minutes, it doesn't matter. But imagine if you're developing a software. So the time is very critical. So you have to have a calibrated, accredited timing, right? So this is very important part. So measurement traceability, first thing, we need to check your organization, all the equipments are calibrated. Right. So part of the providing confidence in the validity measurement results, measuring equipment shall be calibrated or verified or birth. Like, since most of you are coming from food background, food industries, you might be using a thermocouple. So in Sri Lanka, like, when you try to analyze calibrate the thermocouple, we might have an issue, right? The facility is not there. So, but again, we have to do somehow, right? Specified interval or prior to use against measurement standard. Traceable is international or national measurement standard. When do such standard exist? The basis used for calibration and verification shall be retained as a documented information. So your calibration has to be documented information. So the main problem here, what we are facing at the calibration is you use a particular temperature measurement, like your temperature measurement will be like 30 to 40, right? But when you do the calibration, you do calibration 35 to 100. Pointless, because you don't get the linear curve. You have a curve, right? So you have to make sure, like, when you do the calibration, you have to make sure, like, when you're sending the sample, the product, you need to identify the calibration range and then communicate with the external laboratory. And then laboratory has to have accreditation, right? Otherwise, your results will be like, is not that valid. So when it's come to BRC or FSSC, these are mandatory requirement, right? So even ISO, you need to have a calibrated equipment. And then second thing, and then you need to have a master equipment. So that master equipment, sometimes they're used to calibrate other equipment because these are expensive, right? These are actually expensive. So when you do the testing, maybe you can keep a secure place, secure place, without any distraction or without damage. Sometimes, like when you do the ruler the calibration, you can see ruler, like there's a top part is gone because way they handle it, right? So you don't know whether what point you need to take the zero, right? Thermometer, verniers, all these things are there. So this calibration is very important part. Right now, we complete PD planning. We totally complete, and then we complete the operation part. Right. So now the checking part. So we covered these areas. So entire operation part is we covered, right? So that's why I cover the operation part is easy. During the morning hours, everybody is very fresh, right? So now we are getting to the check-in part. Right. So this we call performance evaluation, monitoring, measurements, analysis, and evaluation. What need to be monitored and measured? The method for monitoring, measurements, analysis, and evaluation need to ensure valid results. When monitoring and measuring shall be performed, when the results from monitoring and measuring shall be analyzed and evaluated. The organization shall evaluate the performance and the effectiveness of the quality management system. The organization shall retain appropriate documented information, evidence for results. So what do you mean by performance evaluation? So this is very easy. Why this is very easy? Because when you have your objective set in a proper way, right? When you have your objective set in a proper way, it's a matter of monitoring. Like say, for example, manufacturing organization, you can monitor actually your productivity. So you might have so many machines. You can say, okay, my machine output per hour is this. Am I getting this output? Say, for example, you have a tetra packing machine. What would be the output per minute? And am I getting this output? And then when you get an output, what would be the internal reject rate? Say you have a machine per minute, you say 100 units supposed to be there. So you're getting 100 units, fine. Your overall efficiency is 100, but every 100, there will 2 packs will be rejected due to some errors. So you are losing your productivity because now your productivity, overall efficiency is 98% because due to quality defects, there are 2 packs is rejecting, right? So similar KPIs can be set. So, and then again, you can measure the amount of water. I think like one of your teammates mentioned about amount of water goes into the production, right? Apart from product water usage, you can identify the cleaning, other utilities, the amount of water, right? So then you can develop action plan to minimize it. So that's production. And then training hours per employees, maybe GMP, quality, food safety, maintenance, whatever the amount of training hours. So this is pretty much based on the competencies. You can remember you develop the competency metrics. So you develop competency metrics we develop competency metrics for executives, right? The senior people. But again, we need to develop competency metrics for the operator levels as well. Say, for example, machine operator. You develop material like, competency metrics like, okay, this person has to have an NVQ level, this, and then this person has to have this amount of technical knowledge, and then the safety knowledge. So that's the ideal model. So then you evaluate all the people in the organization. Like, I have 5 operators. So Nimal, Sunil, Kamal, Jayant, whatever. So then you identify Nimal, Sunil, Kamal, and whatever people. So their safety awareness, like where the machine parts are there, where the machine, like, risk factors, where the, like, stop switch, all are not up to the required level, the knowledge, the right training knowledge. So required level is 5, but they are at level 3. So you need to develop training plan to upgrade level 3 into level 5. So within 1 year, you say, okay, I'm going to upgrade. So that will be part of performance monitoring. You are going to upgrade your employees. So why you are going to upgrade your employees? Because if you update them, you are not going to face so many safety issues. So last year, like you say, okay, my particular plant, I ended up with 2 severe accidents. And then there are so many near misses, maybe 20. So then you want to say, okay, I'm going to make sure this year with this training program, 0 accident. And then at least cut down by 50% near misses, 50% near misses. So these are the things we are going to do. So whatever the KPIs we said, we need to retain appropriate documentation. Like, one of you all said, like, in your organization, the lecturer's motivation level. So that not from lecturer side, that will be monitored by the student point. So student will evaluate the lecturer, like, you develop some criteria, and then based on that criteria, you evaluate. And then you identify, okay, current lecturer's motivation level is like, we'll say 60%. So you want to bring it to 80%. So what are you going to do? So you develop action plan. So then you try to monitor that. So these are the kind of a performance evaluation and monitoring part, right? And then this is very important. Customer satisfaction. The organization shall monitor customer perception of the degree to which their need and expectation have been fulfilled. The organization shall determine method for, so standard doesn't give you the method, right? So it said method to determine the obtaining the and monitoring and reviewing this information. Example of monitoring customer perception can include customer surveys, customer feedback on delivered product and service, meeting with the customer, market share analysis, complement, warranty claims, and dealer report. So these are the customer satisfaction part. Now, I want to do a small case study. So all of you have a customers, right? So maybe if you are a senior, you can consider yourself your junior as a customers, right? In your university, right? And then people who work in the industry is very easy. So maybe a friend from Yugadanavi can consider the electricity users as their customers. I know, like, your direct customer is CB, all right, but consider as an end users, or maybe you consider as a CB, right? So identify your customer, and then can you develop a, like, mechanism to monitor the customer satisfaction? Say, for example, now all of you are my customers because I'm doing the training. Yeah, you are supposed to get the training back. So how I'm going to get the customer satisfaction? So the organizers might, like, develop a criteria and say, okay, trainers, timing, knowledge, whatever this criteria, you say 5 to 1, whatever, they will develop the satisfaction format and then pass it to you. And then you will do that evaluation, and then they will give the feedback. So when they organize the next training program, they decided, okay, whether to get this trainer, or, like, we need to have a different trainer, or, like, those kind of, or, like, what are the requirements, maybe facility, the team's link quality, or maybe presentation quality. So you identify. So then based on that, like, it's easy for them to evaluate their satisfaction level, right? So this is very crucial, like, for the organization, because this is the first hand information. Like, sometimes you might say, we are monitoring customer complaint. Fine. But that is, like, only if customer decided to give you the complaint. What happened if customer said, okay, I'm not going to give any complaint. I'm, like, I'm done with you all. So I'm not going to waste my time giving complaint. You guys so bad, I'm moving out. So your customer, you're losing the customer, but without, you don't have any feedback about the customer. But this is a proactive mechanism which you will get more information from your customer. Right. Now, Is it the task? Is the task is clear? You have to develop customer satisfaction format, whatever the customers you are dealing with, and then it should give you a kind of an indicator about your organization, yourself. Maybe like you can do an internal customer satisfaction. Say for example, QA is an internal customer for manufacturing as well as the production. So always manufacturing, you will get a worse results, right? But what happen if, as an organization, if QA doesn't hold the product, the damaged product will go into the market, and then you are like using the customer. Or if there's a legal violation, again there's issue. So QA has to have a gatekeeping. So when you QA develop that kind of a format, you have to be very careful, right? Don't ask how is my service, how service. They will say very bad. Why? Because you are blocking my product, right? So these are the key areas when you're designing this. So and same time when you develop the customer satisfaction format, don't think of getting the certificate and fulfill the standard requirement. Just see what are the improvements I am going to get. So if you have 100 customers and only 20 customers are giving 80% of your values, just focus on that 20 customers at the beginning, right? And then come back to the others. So there are different methods. It's a learning curve. So can you develop a customer satisfaction format for your customer? Can we do that? Will take 5 minutes. Can you do that? Team, are you good? Can you do that? Shamod, thank you. Right. Okay. So it's mean Mystica, thank you. Right. Okay. So you have a black thumb. How come? We all have yellow. See, we all have yellow, right? But Mystica Gayatri only she has a black one. How come? I need to find out. Right. Okay. So let's get on with the customer satisfaction format. So we'll take 5 minutes. So now 3:55. So 4 o'clock we'll start discussion. So you can use both chat, WhatsApp chat and this chat both. And if you have any doubt, question, you can ask. See, I'll give one example. Like, sometimes people send lengthy questionnaire. People and really reluctant to, write all this information. So, not recently. Like, when you go to Toyota, like previously, when you do the service in your car, like, in Toyota, they send a SMS. So SMS asks, like, rate their service, 10 is the very good and 1 is the worst, 10 to 1, right? So if you rate, like, above 5, uh, 5 and above, uh, that's it. They don't bother you, they don't call you, they don't ask any question. But all the rating below 4, right? So one SMS, and, like, you do that, right? Like, you don't mind sending a reply like 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, whatever, 9, 10. So you send, like, as long as you send the 5 above 5, 5, 6, so they don't bother, right? They collect that information. But moment you send a rating below 5, the 4, 3, 2, 1, then their customer care center, like, representative will call you and get more details. So that's quite, because, like, if somebody rate you because their service is not that good, right? So that's one way of doing it, because we know, like, customer behavior, they don't like to write a lot of things, but sending a one number reply back is okay. So they do that. So when you develop this customer satisfaction format, make sure it's customer friendly. Like, it can't be that hassle to the customer. Don't ask so many questions. You focus very few areas. Like, the Toyota example is that one SMS saying 10 to 1. 10 is very good, 1 is worst. So where is our service? So you give it a rating. So below 5, they come back. Right. Okay. Can I get few feedbacks? Yeah, I'm getting feedbacks. So Sinuru has sent this. Okay, nice. Uh, University Department Service. Reading level of agreement with following student reading the service you receive. Strongly disagree, disagree, normal, agree, strongly agree. So she has basically, like, rate the rating from 5 to 1. Strongly agree to strongly disagree. So student 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. The staff member you introduced with was polite and can't remember. All right. Okay. The staff member was knowledgeable and able to assist you. Okay. The service you received, your need. Excellent. This is good. So you have, like, only 3 questions. So you are very much focusing on the staff member, right? And the service level. Fantastic. So you say, okay, strongly agree, agree, disagree. Okay. Fantastic. Nim. Thank you. That's nice. So I'm getting more feedbacks. Chatura. Customer satisfaction survey, SM
So
Lab.
may I read this?
Yeah, please.
Customer satisfaction survey laboratory. So first, the customer details, name of the organization or the individual, contact person position, contact email, contact phone. And the first question is, how long have you been a customer from our laboratory? The less than 6 months, 6 months to 1 year, 1 year, 1 to 3 years, or more than 3 years. Other laboratory services provide align with your expectation. Please rate on the scale 1 to 5. 1 is not aligned and 5 is perfectly aligned. And how satisfied are you with the accuracy and the reliability of the test result provided by our laboratory? Very satisfied, very dissatisfied, neutral, satisfied, and very satisfied. Whether laboratory communication and response to your inquiries and concerns needs improvement, satisfactory, average, good, excellent. What do you appreciate most about our laboratory services, and what improvements, if any, would you suggest for our laboratory services? Additional comments or suggestions for our laboratory services.
Excellent. Chandra, this is fine. Fantastic. So, like you covered everything. And look at these two, Sinuri and Chandra, both of them, like, they don't have much of question, right? 4, 5 question. So sometimes when you see the customer satisfaction, you have lengthy, like, two-side this stuff. So this is two. And then, like, nowadays you can use the Google Sheet, and then automatically you can get the information, right? And then with Roshan, like, you put it us into trouble, right? So he basically asked some mobile service provider app rating 1 to 10. So with Roshan, like, so app rating 1 is good. I think like 10 is, no, 1 is pretty bad. 10 is good, right? So one question, like Toyota. So he has like one particular mobile service provider's name, the app rating. So when you open that app, it will take years to open up, right? Vidrushan, I think like that's what you want to know, right? Yeah. Okay. Interesting. So anybody wants to chip in? All good? Right. I think like you know about customer satisfaction part now. So basically like we basically covered the customer satisfaction. So when you have this customer satisfaction input, these are very valuable information for the top management, right? So top management should know about this. So let's try to understand where you going to understand this requirement, right? So we complete the case study, and this is very important. So now up to this customer satisfaction level, so all our implementation part. Now we know like it's a checking. So you check the performance evaluation, KPI, objectives, those kind of a thing. You check the customer satisfaction, and then there's a different. We call internal audit. So like you already implement the system by yourself, right? The organization you implement. Then before the external audit, you are going to challenge your system, right? So the organization shall conduct by yourself, right? Conduct internal audit at planned intervals to provide information on whether the quality management system confirms to organization own requirement for its quality management system, the requirement of the international standard, the effectively implement and maintain. So we are going to challenge our system, right? So like there's a special guideline called, I'll type on the chat, ISO 90011 2018 guideline. This is a guideline. Right? ISO 90011. This is a guideline. What do you mean by guideline? See, now this ISO 9001 2015 is a standard. So you can audit against and issue a certificate. Guideline, technical specification, you can't. Since now, like Chatra is there, so they got FSSC standard. So when you have a FSSC, so FSSC has like 3 standard actually. So they have ISO 22000 2018 standard, and then they have TS 22000. That's a technical guideline, right? And then Apart from that, there are additional requirements. So they have 3 requirements to get the FSSC. So when you have ISO 22, when you have FSSC already, ISO 22000 is like inbuilt, right? So then there's a technical specification, technical guideline, and then this 19011 2018 is a guideline for the auditors. It can be internal auditors, it can be external auditors. There's a guideline because, like, when you do the auditing, there's an ethical requirement, right? And how to develop the audit program, how to conduct the audit, how to report it, and what are the auditing principles. Those things are there. So all internal auditors should follow this guideline. That's the mandatory requirement. So when you follow the guideline, then you need to have a standard understanding, and then you can do the internal audit. So normally internal auditor training program is actually a 2-day program, right? The first day they will basically do, like, the standard awareness, and then second day they will go through the standard, and then you do a lot of case studies on how to conduct the internal audit. So this organization, like in any organization, when you certify, before certification, you need to conduct internal audit as planned interval. So, and then standard like BRC, FSSC, even 9000, they'll say, like, when you do the internal audit, consider the risk factors. What do you mean by risk factors when you do the planning? Say, for example, if you have a coconut, desiccated coconut manufacturing plant, right? And then during that, like, you bring the coconut, you hatchet it, and then, like, you go through different processes. Like, you have an open product with a lot of water, right? So those are kind of high risk areas. So the moment you open the product from the shell, like you call it hatchet it, and then product is very vulnerable. So that particular points you consider as a kind of a risk area, high risk area, until it goes to a dryer, right? Then higher from dry them out, it dries, remove the moisture. Then again, those, like, until it goes to the packaging, bag, seal, it will consider, like, these areas kind of high risk areas. And then maybe you are, like, your like, raw materials, packing material, not the packing material, raw materials areas, vehicle parking areas, maybe your finance department, maybe your purchasing department. Those are, like, not considered as that kind of a risk areas, right? But the moment open products are there, we consider as high risk area. So your audit frequency, maybe your purchasing department audit will be, like, every 6 months, but every quarter you might do audit in your production house, right? So your audit plan can be vary depend on the risk factors, right? Say, for example, now I'm taking one example in power plant. So power plant, like, surrounding areas, you might consider it's not that risk area, maybe, but your like, your radiate area, or your maybe like main operation areas, you can consider as these are kind of high risk areas. So your more focus will be on those areas, right? So depend on the physical, or maybe like us in service industry, like we work with the customer in different projects. So all our informations are very critical, right? So these critical informations, are, like, are kind of high risk. So where you keep this information? Is it with our team's computers, or do we have a secure place to keep this information? So these are like high risk areas we consider. So I think like somebody wants 90011 guidelines. So I think, like, normal practice in Sri Lanka is the SLSI is the authorized body to provide the guideline. So, and when we give the standard, it says it's not like, not for networking, but we can use the standard for training purpose. So what I'll do is, like, maybe Pushpika will have a chat with the team. Maybe then after the discussion, maybe we consider to give the standard, right? So we'll consider that part about the standard, right? So this is a guideline actually. And then this is the internal audit. This is must. So before the audit, you do your internal audit, and then one requirement, you can't audit your own process. Say, for example, if I'm in charge of the training at Halcyon, I can't audit the training unit. I had to audit some other areas, right? So these are the requirement. And then after you complete the internal audit, you do management review. So can you remember we had a question, right? So there are some information we need to discuss with the management and all. So we don't know where, at which point we are going to discuss. So this is the forum, right? Under management review. So I said like, customer satisfaction. So you get the feedback from customer, whether they are happy, that they are not happy, and then those information we need to present at the management review. So most of the senior managers, the top management should be there on this forum. So customer satisfaction feedback and then relevant interested party feedback we need to collect. So we need to present to the top management. And then to extent which the quality objective have been met. You set KPIs, you identify objective. So you need to identify at what is the level you achieve the objectives. And then process performance and conformity of the product service. Your process performance and then your product conformity. How many like non-conformance, how many reject quantities, all these things. And then non-conformity and corrective action. So how many non-conformities per month? And then what are the corrective actions? So when you have management review, you need to include. So these are mandatory inputs, right? And then monitoring and measuring results. So your monitoring, measuring results has to be included. And then of course your internal audit or maybe your previous audit results. So this means the audit outcome and then corrective action and what are the action you are taking or maybe pending tasks. And then the performance of external providers. Like you have a dye house, what is their performance? You have a electrical contractor, what is their performance? Maybe you outsource some QA function to Halcyon, and then like what is their performance? So those things we need to identify, and then we need to identify the adequacy of resources, whether we are having enough resources, whether we are having like if you're on a lab, whether we are having enough chemicals, or whenever we are having enough equipment, or the space is enough, right? Or maybe if you are doing a consultancy, whether we are having enough transport facility, right? All these things we need to identify, and then effectiveness of the action taken to address risk and opportunities. So your can you remember element 4.4, the context, and element 6 talk about the action plan. So whether the effectiveness of the action, and then you need to discuss the opportunity for improvement. So these input has to be there in the management review. So these are the mandatory requirement, right? And then management review output. So these are the input. So when you give this input, there should be output. So what are the output? The output of the management review shall include the decisions and action related to opportunity for improvement. So when you have output, what are the opportunity for improvement? You might say, okay, I need to improve this particular skills of my employees. Okay, to improve these skills, I need to either I need to do a in-house training, or I need to get an external trainer, or I need to send people for this external training program. So that's the requirement. Or maybe you might say, okay, I need additional resources. I need to bring this particular equipment, testing equipment, because my customers are pretty much concerned about these results. So I need to bring testing equipment. So the improvement point. So any need for changes of the quality management system. Oh, otherwise, like, you might say, okay, I need to get ISO certification because I'm going to send product to this particular countries and they require this, right? So those are the, and any changes to the quality management system. So is there any changes? So I remember like, you talk about change of the process and the facility. Yeah. So here at the management review, you need to discuss. You might say, okay, right now we are bringing product from like, this particular country. You say, okay, we are getting from Italy. But due to this red ocean issue, we decided to bring the product from India, right? Then the product quality and the contamination, because the Italy product contamination, the heavy metals, we know about everything, but maybe Indian product, we don't know. So then at the management review, you might decide, okay, let's do a more analysis. Like, Italy product, you do once a year heavy metal analysis. This is expensive. But for the Indian product, at least we get assurance. We need to do every shipment analysis, right? Because like, if there's a heavy metal with the raw material, in your process, there's no way of removing the heavy metals, right? It will go ended up in your product. When your customer monitor it, then you are in trouble. Then what are the resources you need, right? Like, you might say, okay, I need human resource. So I need external consultants. I need training. Oh, I need facilities. I need this equipment, right? So those are the resources. So as an output management review, these things has to be there. Opportunity for improvement, any need for changes to the quality management system, and resource need. The organization shall retain documented information as evidence of results of management review. So this has to be documented. So you can't just have a meeting and say, okay, we are done with the management review. No, output has to be documented, but this documentation should cover all this. Customer satisfaction, what are the output? Quality objective, what are the output? Process performance, what are the output? Non-conformity corrective action, what are the output? Monitoring, measuring, what are the output? So audit results, gaps, what are the output? This can be internal, external, both. The performance of the external provider, what are the output? And then resource, what are the output? So those things we need to cover, right? So these are the key areas. So we complete up to check-in part, PDC, right? Now the action, right? So this is improvement. So these are the last part, element number 10, right? We are the final phase, right? So when non-conformity and corrective action, and I said, when nonconformity occurs, including any arising from complaint, the organization shall react to the nonconformity and as appropriate. So if there's a nonconformity, this can be complaint, this can be internal rejection, whatever, you have to react. First thing is react, right? Take action to control and correct it. Like say, for example, if somebody said, my weight is less. So you have a product, you declare 50 gram, but when you identify the output would be 48. So you are violating a legal requirement. Why? If the weight and measurement department check the weight, you declared 50, but your product has only 48 grams. So that's a violation of legal requirement. So then immediately, like, take action to control and correct it. You have to hold the product, and then you have to hold the, last 2 hours batch. Well, say, for example, you are checking every hour the weight. So last 2-3 hours, you have to check, hold it, maybe entire days, and then you need to check it. And then only you need to identify, okay, which one is my fault issue. Correct. Then stop the machine, you adjust the weight, and then correct it, right? You bring it to a minimum level to 42, whatever, right? Correct it. Then you run it, and then you increase the frequency. So deal with the consequence. So then what are you going to do with the reject lot? So if it is a full seal pack, there's no way you have to discard everything. So then discarding, you might cut the product, cut the bag, open the product, and then you might take the same product into it, but you have to discard the packing material. So the packing material is actually a loss. But then again, how are you going to reintroduce it? So those consequences you need to face, right? Then evaluate the need for action to eliminate the cause then of the non-conformity in order to that does not occur elsewhere by. So now first one is react. Now this one is the proactive part. Review and analyze the non-conformity. Like I took the example underweight. So then you do a root cause analysis why there's underweight, right? Whether it's an issue with the bulk density or whether it's an issue with the weighing scale or whether it's the operator, whatever. So you do the review non-conformity and then determine the cause of non-conformity. So you identify what are the most significant cause. So you can use different techniques, right? You can use YY, you can use FMEA, whatever the mechanism you can use. And then determine if similar non-conformities exist or could potentially occur. So then you'll say you have 3 lines. So you identify one non-conformity due to issue with the bulk density. So then you check the other 2 lines also, the bulk density part. Whether are you going towards the similar scenarios, and then you take corrective action. So this part talk about corrective action. So first you react it. Say for example, now since most of the people are from food industry, if there's a microbiological contamination you found out at the lab, so you hold the product like entire batch, right? And then you redo the sampling until you segregate okay, these are the contaminated product and these are the good product. So you try to send the good product into the market, and then contaminated product you take decision, are we going to discard it, reprocess it, whatever the possible, right? Then come back and you do the root cause analysis. So root cause analysis may be time consuming. So you might need to get involved with the microbiologists, chemists and all. You develop why is happening, right? So this is the corrective action 2 phase, right? So non-conformity, this is the checking part. And then implement any action needed, review the effectiveness of any corrective action taken, and uptake risk and opportunity. So update. So this is the risk. So when you do your risk assessment at the context, internal context, need and expectation of interested party and the processes, you miss out this point. Yeah.